This is the Building Wealth through a 1031 Exchange webinar by the eHara team, Keller Williams. Today we have myself, I'm Khalil Fong, over on the right-hand side. I'm the chief negotiator for the eHara team. I deal with the contracts and disclosure statements with all of our listing clients. Dan is one of the top agents in the state. 15, 16 years running now, Dan? Long time,
50.
very long
50, yeah,
time.
yeah.
Yeah, wealth of knowledge. He's our team leader and inspiration to a lot of us. But yeah, let's see, what are we getting into today, Dan? So here are the things we're going to cover today: past and current projected real estate trends, what's going on in the market right now, real estate investment considerations, the mechanics of the tool that we call the 1031 exchange. Okay, buyer's contingencies, the transferring wealth to create a legacy, and then in the end, we'll open it up. Any remaining questions that you have, we will love to answer. Okay, now
Yeah, thanks,
first,
Khalil.
yeah, first let's start with current market trends. Here, let's take a chance again to test out the chat box. This is a question to the audience. Where do you think real estate prices are currently headed? You know, it is kind of an interesting time with COVID and everything, and it seems like we are um, trending towards a recession. You know, so what do you think about real estate, the market, real estate prices? Where do you see it heading in the next couple of years? Go ahead and use that chat box.
What do you think? Yeah, put it in the chat box for us. Let us know. What do you think? Are prices going up, going down, going to be flat? Just curious to get a poll as to what the communities are feeling out there. Okay, that's when you put your fingers on your cell phone or the keypad and you type in up or down or flat. Anybody? All right. Is it down, down, down?
Okay, we got
I'm gonna go with
couple answers from Helene and Doreen and from Brad. A lot of people are thinking it's going to go down. Martin, logical thing would be to go down. Yeah. What do you think, Dan? What do you think?
yeah.
What are the
Well,
stats showing us?
yeah, let's take a look at some data. So this chart shows what's happened. This is hard data from 1987 to now. And as you can see, when the values grew during this cycle, this expansion was really just 3 to 4 years. And it peaked out in 1990. And then after the peak, what happens after every peak in the market? We see a dip. Well, this dip actually took us 12 years long to recover. So from the peak of 1990 to get to the same values of 1990, you actually had to wait till 2002 to get to the same values, right? So that was a 12-year recession. This cycle here from 07, this was a much shorter recession, meaning it was a very steep incline, right? Then we had a mortgage crisis, and then what happened here? Well, it took 7 years to equate the same values from 2007, right? So this recession was much shorter, but we do know after every peak what happens. We took a little bit of a slide. Now, keep in mind, it's not going to be like many parts of the country in Florida, Nevada, California, Arizona, where they saw 40, 50, even 60% decrease in values. This was only 7%. The most we ever lost was 7%. So, yeah, I think we saw the peak in 2019, and we're starting to see a decline now. It's going to go up and down, but basically, this cycle was the largest expansion we've ever experienced in our lifetime. This is 10 years of growth. Real estate typically goes in 7 to 8 years of expansion. This was 10. And it was very strong until COVID, but actually we started seeing the change in the market prior to COVID, right? We started feeling the shift in the market last year. So 2019 is when we started feeling it, that we knew that we had peaked and we're on a decline in values-wise. So that's what's going on in the market today. What do we think is going to happen in the future? Yeah, there's a really good chance that these values are going to dip a bit. Now, how much? Hard to say. Some things that are more current that's going to happen is, you know, if you think about it, the values are really a mechanics of supply and demand, right? Basic economics. So right now there's very limited supply, meaning less people are putting their house in the market now with COVID, less people want anybody in their home, so there's less inventory, right? And with that, because low inventory, demand is still strong, prices are still solid. So recently, right, Kaleo, how many escrows did we open up that were really close or over the list price, right? We had a number of them.
In the last few weeks, we've seen maybe four, five.
Yeah, 4 or 5, right?
Or above, with multiple offers, which is surprising.
So yeah, I mean, what that really shows you is really based on supply and demand, right? But what's going to happen is after June, after the stay-at-home goes away, and July, let's just say everything's more open, and now we have more public open houses, then more inventory is going to hit the market, right? And what happens with more inventory? There's more choices, more options for people to buy. Therefore, you're going to see more inventory opportunities. What's also going to happen is this forbearance, and I think everyone's heard of the forbearance programs that are out there. Basically, if you look at it in the simplest terms, you don't have to pay your mortgage for 6 months, and you feel good about that because you can't pay your mortgage for 6 months. And so that's a blessing. Although at the end of the 6 months, you're going to have to either pay it back or refinance your mortgage or break it down in the next 2 to 3 years and pay it back. So what's going to happen is people aren't going to be able to do that, right? There are going to be some people that just won't be able to. So we're going to see a little bit more inventory come on the market because of the economy, right? People not being able to pay their bills and forced to get out before it's trouble. So we're going to expect to see an increase in supply probably in the next few months. So if you're thinking of selling sooner, it's probably better than later. If you're thinking of buying, get your cash ready, and there'll be some good deals coming up here very soon, right? Very soon. So what are the other things that impact value in the market? It's interest rates, right? So, the next, I think I missed, we didn't have the interest rate chart. Right now, what is the interest rate now, Kaleo? I think it was a 3 1/4, 3 1/8 on a conventional owner-occupant mortgage, right? That's extremely low, right? Well, this chart shows you what happens when the rate rises. Now, again, I think this year we're going to be okay on the rates. You know, the economy is in pretty bad shape, so they'll keep the rates pretty favorable is what we're told. And so we think we're okay on the rates for now. But at some point, the rates are going to rise, right? We don't know when that's going to be. But what if, today, let's just use a simple guess here, that let's just say it's 4% today, and the rates go up just 1%. It goes from 4 to 5%, right? Well, most people are going to keep their payments the same, right? So at 1910, and you look in this chart here, what happens is you now lose 11% of buying power. The amount of money that you could afford every month does not afford you the same property because a 1% rise in interest rate reduces your buying power by 11%. So that $500,000 property you were going to buy, you won't be able to buy anymore. You're looking at a $445,000 property, which is a $55,000 difference. Huge impact, huge impact. So know that you're going to want to lock in a really good property at a really good rate before the rates go up. Because imagine locking that in for 30 years. That's a huge savings, right? Huge. So know that the interest rates play a big part, and fortunately now we're in a good position, right, to build wealth with
You're
the
right,
lower interest
Dan.
rates.
And I think those interest rates are really contributing to why there's so many buyers on the market right now. You know, why we're
Yeah,
getting really strong offers and there's competition on these property. It's because we may never see these interest rates ever again.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Okay, so here's another question to the audience, you know, before we go forward. Why do you want to invest in real estate? Just want to see, you know, what your motivations are. And maybe we can share our motivations with each other.
Yeah, if you can put in your chat box, type in there, so why is it, what's driving you to want to invest? You know, some people want to do it for college education, some people are doing retirement, some people are thinking long-term care, some people are thinking building wealth for the kids. What is it for you? Okay. What's driving you to want to do that? So put that in the chat for us. Great, diversification. Yeah, that's, you know, today's world, right, Fred? The market's pretty volatile out there. So we know that actually we took the last 20 years of data here in Oahu, and it penciled out to 5% appreciation year over year over the last 20 years. Right? There are some better than others, but if you took the last 20 years, you're looking at a 5% appreciation. So pretty good reason to want to do that. Cool. Let's move on.
That's why I want to do it.
Some of the, yeah, diversity in retirement. That's good. So
Yep.
the other thing is, like, how do we want to look at the investment, right? So investors look at it in multiple perspectives. The initial go at it when we're looking at investment property is cap rate or capitalization rate. We'll talk about that in a minute. Then we also have to look at our short-term cash flow, right? Our return on our investment. Then also our cash-on-cash analysis, right? What is that going to look like for us? And then finally, we're going to look at appreciation, long-term appreciation. What do we believe? And, you know, long-term appreciation is really hard to guess, though we have an idea of which areas would have a better chance on future appreciation growth, right? So what is a cap rate? Well, cap rate is a quick real gauge to determine the economic viability of that piece of real estate, right, that asset. And it's a simple formula, right? You take your annual net operating income, you divide it by your purchase price, right? How do you do that? Well, your annual net operating income is all your income minus all your expenses every month, times it by 12, you annualize it, then you get your annual net operating income. So let's just say you had $1 million apartment building and you had a $50,000 annual net operating income. What that means to you is you have a 5% cap rate. Now, 5% cap rate, ladies and gentlemen, is really good in Hawaii. Pretty hard to find, actually. And in all honesty, in many states, 5% is very good. In some states, you could get 5, 6, 7%, but it's hard to get beyond that. Here in Hawaii, on average, most people are looking at, you know, that they're currently getting anywhere from 1 to 3% that they're currently getting. Right? What we do is we do an asset performance test so we can test the performance of the asset and measure it against other assets of its same dollar value. And then we can measure the performance of it, and that's an asset performance test. But we'll dive into how we do that now. So let's go on. For example, so let's say we're looking at this property, right? You're going through MLS, you say, whoa, look at this property. It's $288,000. It's a 2-bedroom, 1 bath. 690 square feet with a nice lanai. No flooding issue, no zone, flood zone X, so no flood insurance. Posture good, 1 parking, it's a sign. Huh, look at this. $845 for sewer and water. That's a little on the high side. But, you know, you look at it from a glance, you know, tenant's paying $1,800. Hey, I still make, you know, $900 or so, $800 or so a month. Sounds good, right? Sounds really good. At first glance, it does. Until we start looking at the math. So when we look at that gross income, of 1,800, right? And that annualizes out to 21,006. But then you also have expenses, right? You got property taxes, you got GE taxes, you've got insurance for the property. We got property management. Unless you're gonna manage it yourself, and then you've got your maintenance fee. This is pretty much sewer and water, right? That's a big number. Look at all of your expenses. This number has the greatest impact, your maintenance fee. Look at putting some money on the side for repairs, maybe doing a washer and dryer once a year or so, right? That type of thing. Then when you do your total expenses, your net operating income divided by the purchase price gives you 1.8%. Yeah, that's not performing at its peak as what you could potentially get for a $288,000 asset, right? So this measures how it's performing as its net operating income, what you net out at the end of the year relative to how much that asset's worth. Okay, so that's just the way to analyze the performance of that particular asset. Let's go and look at example 2. Now this one's a little bit more expensive. You're thinking, ooh, $65,000 more. I don't know about that. It's in Eva Beach. Oh, I don't know about that. Then you look, oh, wait a minute. So this was newly renovated. Low HOA fees. How low? $303. Now that's a 500 and some odd change benefit, right? Difference. Right, and you're looking at a three bedroom, 1.5 bath, 1 parking, 1,300. Yeah, it looks okay. So let's run the math now. So when we run the math, Khalil, right, we're at 345. We're looking at $2,300 of income every month. Now we got to look at the expenses. So the current 2020 rate on your property taxes is $124 a month. General excise tax, insurance, property management at 10%. Sewer and water, $300 a month, repairs. Now look at your net operating income. Big difference, almost $17,000. Divided by your purchase price, you're at a 4.9% cap rate. That's extremely high mathematically.
It's like 3 times the other one.
Yeah, right? So
Yeah.
just imagine, so to pay $60,000, where was it? $60,000 more, you get that kind of return, almost $17,000 a year, as opposed to, let me back up here, $5,000 a year. Okay? So this is another way to look at it is, what is your money doing for you, right? How is it performing every month, every year, based on the money that you have there located? All right. Any questions on the cap rate? Oh, yes, Helene, tax shelters, absolutely. Great tax shelter. You can depreciate, as we talked in our last class, the improvements, not the land, but the improvements, divided by 27.5 years. So depreciation is also another opportunity. And then future appreciation as well, right? This asset at 345, what do you think it's going to be worth in 10 years, 5 years, right? Well, if you did even a 4% appreciation, what is that? That's $12,000 a year growth. Okay. So just some things to think about when you're thinking about building wealth through real estate. Many ways. Thanks to Helene for sharing that. So when we could do an analysis and we compare the different assets, obviously address, neighborhood, year built will make a difference, right? The unit, purchase price, size. Take a look at this. So this one generates you, it's much larger, right? Generates you $27,600, so $6,000 more income and $6,000 less expense. That's why you get such a great number here, your income and expense ratio, okay? Any questions on that? Is there a rule of thumb, better to buy a house or apartment? Good question. I think if you had the resources to buy a house, I would buy a house. And if I had the resources to buy a house, and if I could buy one, I'd buy multi-unit house, more than one space. When I first started in this business, 5 years into being a realtor, I kind of thought I was doing okay, right? I was kind of got in the top 100, right? I was doing okay, and I thought I knew a lot about real estate. And so this old Chinese lady came up to me and she taught me a lesson that I'll never forget. And she said, the best deal, Dan, is to buy the smallest unit with the most number of units. And my first thought was, no, I don't know if that makes sense or not. I think a 2-bedroom, you get more money for it. Well, when we do the math, and we can do it for you at any time, we can show you that she was absolutely correct. This wise lady was very, very correct, very astute, because the rental income, so the cost of a 2-bedroom is much higher than a 1-bedroom, but the rental income isn't proportionally greater. So therefore, you're paying more, but you're getting less for it. Therefore, your cap rate is going to be a little lower, right? It's going to be typically, if you were to compare apples to apples on apartment buildings, right? But in this example, don't think about the neighborhood as having an impact. What you really have to look at is the income and expense ratios, right? Of what kind of income you can get and how much expense. In this case, the biggest deal is the $500 a month difference, right? Of maintenance fee. Okay.
Interesting. I like that story.
Hope that helps. Yeah.
Okay.
Cash flow.
Cash
I think
flow.
somebody mentioned cash flow. Helene mentioned cash flow. Yeah.
Ah.
A lot of us are looking for cash flow, right? So what are we talking about here? Well, I'm going to run through this fairly quickly. We already did this math. So this is that first example number 1 with the 1.8 cap rate, not very good. And when you look at when you're looking at cash flow, you got to consider your mortgage. Now, keep in mind the cap rate does not consider mortgage. The cap rate is as if you bought it in cash. So you're comparing apples to apples, right? In this case, we're looking at cash flow, because if you had to get a loan, what does that mean to you at the end of the day, right? At the end of the month? Well, in this case, as you can see right in the middle, at 125% down, by the way, which is a minimum, I believe, for getting a mortgage on an investment property, something you did not live in, you're negative almost $7,000. You don't get really positive till after 65% down, right? You really don't, right? Because the expenses are too high. When you're looking at your cash-on-cash return, so basically what that means is for the amount of money that you're investing, and in this case, you're putting a down payment, but you also keep in mind now, you're going to have some closing costs, and you might buy some points, right? So keep in mind, these are expenses that you do not want to you want to make sure you consider, right? So when we look at the total investment, that's the cash in, okay? Which is not only your down payment, it's your closing costs and points, okay? So when you're looking at this example, here's your total investment, right? How does this relate to the return? And here's your percentages, cash on cash based percentages. Yeah, I'd probably want to pass on this one. Wouldn't you agree? Anybody want to buy that one? I can't endorse that. Sorry, I cannot endorse that. Let's look at example 2 though. Now this one I could endorse. 4.9% cap rate at 25% down, right? At 25% down, you're looking at $97,000, right? At 25% down, you got a positive cash flow of $2,300, $2,313, excuse me, right? And then you're looking at this is annualized, right? And you're looking at 35% down, 45, 60. See what I'm saying? So your cash flow is better. Now, when you look on your cash on cash return, what is my cash doing for me? This is what you want to pay attention to, is your cash on cash return, right? I have been very blessed to be part of Gary Keller's mastermind group. Gary Keller is the founder of our company, one of the wealthiest men in our country, I believe. Very, very smart very, very smart man. I got an opportunity to meet with his financial investor. He's hired a guy to invest all of his money in his businesses, but from shopping centers to malls and everything he buys. They only look on cash return, because that's what he wants to do. How do I build money, build my wealth with the current cash that I have, right? That's the way the wealthy people are looking at it, at our cash on cash return. because that's how we're going to leverage ourselves and grow wealth in the future. So as you can see, this analysis shows you, yeah, this one might be a better bet, right, compared to the next one. Okay, any other questions? Then I'm going to move on because we got a lot of ground to cover, Khalil.
Yep.
Okay, so here's the hard thing is the long-term capital appreciation is just really hard to calculate. What we do though is we kind of look at neighborhoods, we look at micro neighborhoods, we look at structure. You know, if you had an apartment building, if you're buying a $2 million apartment building and you had a choice between two, you'd want one with concrete, not wood, right? So structure matters. If you could get it where it's hollow tile down, you'd want it hollow tile down and up. Some of them are only hollow tile on the bottom and wood on the top. So things like that would impact future appreciation. Rentability, and then who the type of tenants are that would be attracted to this property.
Okay, so let's get back towards the 1031. Why is it important, right? Why is a 1031 important? It's because you're deferring your capital gains. Now, Dan, talk to us a second about how you calculate those capital gains.
Very good. Yeah, so that's the first step. You know, we have to be clear on what the gain is because there might not be a gain. If there's no gain, there's no need to do a 1031 exchange, okay?
Right.
So, but if there is a gain, you want to know what it is because you want to understand your liability. Now, you just take your selling price minus the cost of selling is your net selling price, okay? The cost of selling is commissions, title, escrow. Typically, you're going to look at, in total of everything together, 6 and 7% roughly of the selling price for your cost of selling. Subtract that, then you get your net selling price. Then on the other side, you take your cost basis. Now, your cost basis is what you bought it at, what it was transferred to you at, what you bought it at, plus any improvements that you have on the property that you have receipts for. So if somebody says, oh, I built this addition, or I put this TV, or I did whatever it did, if you don't have receipts, don't even consider counting it because the IRS, somehow they like some receipts. So yeah, you're going to want to know that. And then, so you take your cost basis plus your improvements. Now you have your adjusted cost basis. Then you take your selling price minus your adjusted cost basis is your capital gains tax. Okay. So that's kind of the simple way to look at it. So what are the benefits? Why do one? Well, to avoid capital gains taxes, right? At the state level, 8.25%. The federal level is up to 20% of the gain, right? And if your adjusted gross income is greater than $400,000, you have another 3.8% on top of that. Pretty significant penalty if you were to sell an investment property with a gain and not do a 1031 exchange. Okay.
Right. So a
couple of things you want to know. What's that?
Talking about investment properties, right? We're talking about investment properties, and you know, just to reiterate the point, it's not your primary residence where you might be able to have those major exemptions. These are capital gains on your investment properties where those primary resident exemptions would not apply. So that's that's why this 1031 is so important.
Thanks for clarifying that, Khalil. In addition, to define that, an investment property is something you did not live in 2 out of the last 5 years. Because if you lived in your home, if you lived in a home that you owned 2 out of the last 5 years, then it's a primary residence and you get $250,000 tax-free per person. Husband and wife living in the property on title can get $500,000 tax-free. Okay. Everything beyond that, though, is subject to these long-term capital gains. So this could apply to you if your gain is greater than the exemption amount. Okay. Right. Now, the bullet number 3 is it can involve multiple properties, right? And it can allow you to create some diversity or maybe even consolidation, right? For families, today we see a lot of consolidation, right? So older generation, 70s, 80s, 90s, they bought multiple properties around the country or in multiple areas. They were pretty akamai about it, and now they're concerned that their kids won't be able to manage it, so they're selling them, and they're creating a legacy with their properties, which we'll talk about later as well. Creating a legacy has been a real big hot button for many folks today. And then the delayed exchange, I wouldn't get too confused about that. It basically says you can do a simultaneous or you can close up to 180 days, but you have to sign your replacement property by 45 days. We'll talk about that in a minute. And it's a great plan for estate planning. Oh, did I freeze? I can't move forward. Julie, I can't move forward. Can you hear me okay?
We can still hear you. If your computer's not moving, it might just be the screen.
Computer's not moving, Julie. Can you move the screen? Mine is frozen.
A little bit of a technical difficulty. Bear with us here.
Okay. So for those of you who are considering doing a 1031 exchange, what's your greatest fear? What are you most concerned about? Can you put that in the chat box?
Good question. Good question.
Well, while you're entering that note, your concern into the chat box, when it talked about multiple properties, we've done some really crazy kind of 1031 exchanges. We had a client that had 15 or 17 properties around the country. And our most challenging was we sold 5 properties in 3 states to buy 1 here. There were 3 in Houston, 1 in Arizona, 1 on the Big Island. Excuse me. And we had to time it so that all of those would close properly to be able to buy the 1 here. And that was really challenging. We've also had, we had actually another Kaleo before you. We sold 5 very large, I think 4 or 5 acre parcels in the middle of the country. Then they bought a beach house here for $1.7 million. Just that the family was trying to consolidate, right? I think a road was being built through this land that they own, and the government paid them a lot of money for it. And so they came into some money. Like, what do I do now? Well, I always want to live in Hawaii. Let's get one on the beach. Sure, why not?
Well, I remember the client we had. That client last year was selling 4 to buy 1, and all the units were, small units in Waikiki, and they were a little bit run down, but we still managed to sell them. And even though we had issues through the escrow process with like flooding toilets and things, we still managed to complete it. So that was a fun one.
Yeah, you guys should have seen Kaleo, man. He was in that. You and Kent went, right? So get this.
Oh, yeah.
Ready to close. We were ready to close, right? And then one of the toilets leaked and flooded the entire unit. So Kaleo had to go down there with our business partner Kent. And what did you guys? You had to take all that stuff out, right?
Yeah, I mean, and it actually flooded twice during the escrow process. We had to take all this stuff out, make sure that everything was dry. We had to get their insurance companies involved, but hey, we managed to do it, and it was a success. So one of the more interesting really stories that I have.
Yeah, that was a lot of work, but did a really good job on that. Hey, I got some questions here. The concerns was, Jamie Lee said, knowing your tax ramifications, how to evaluate the best move. We can talk about that. It's really based on your situation, but we'll be happy to talk about that offline. We can get together and share that. Not being able to buy and sell within timelines. Yeah, that's the biggest challenge, Ed, during is finding, like Helene said, finding the right property within the timeline. And we're going to explain, let's just go on and explain why we've been successful doing this. But first, before we do, let's talk about the 1031 exchange itself. So it's an IRS tax code. What it does is it allows you to defer your capital gains tax on the sale of investment properties, although you do have to buy a replacement property within a certain time frame. Keep in mind, one of the first things we're going to ask all of our clients to do is prior to even going down this path, what we want you to do is talk to your CPA, and we need to understand what your tax ramifications are. If you fail to fulfill the timelines of this 1031 exchange, what's your penalty, right? We want you to know that, because this is really serious. And we have done, I think we should probably count them, over 150 of these over the last 1,100 transactions we've done. And we've never failed, and because we have a system to it. And well, we'll only work with people who are kind of serious about making sure it doesn't fail, right? So knowing the pain point, knowing if you don't move forward quickly enough, here's what's going to happen. That's important to know. Okay, Julie, I got stuck again. Here we go. So what qualifies for the 1031 exchange? They use this term like kind. And the provision is called like kind. So what's that? And people get confused, right? They think that if I sell a single family home, I got to buy a single family home. That's not true. You can actually sell a single family home and buy a condo. You can sell a piece of vacant land and buy a theater. Or you can sell an apartment building and buy a shopping center. It doesn't matter, right? Or you can sell a theater and buy vacant land. And the reason for it is, see, people get confused. They believe that
Dan, we're having a little bit of a technical difficulty. Hold on one second.
Okay, somebody's moving around. Is that you, Julie?
Okay,
yes,
I think
can
we're
you
back.
see it now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not
Okay,
sure
go
what
ahead.
screen I'm supposed to look at, but I have two here. Yeah, so many people think that, oh no, I got to have a tenant in there, or I got to rent it, or I got to have income. And they say it's an investment property because you're enjoying the future appreciation over time. So if you own vacant land, that's probably the best piece to do. We had a client that came to our 1031 exchange class, and he had a vacant lot, and he didn't know that he could do a 1031 exchange. He just thought that, I don't have any income, I don't know what to do with it. I don't have any income, I'm paying property tax, and I got to go cut the yard every month. Like, this is just a liability, and there's no benefit of it. So we ended up selling that land. We bought him a condo because it was like, I think it was like $500,000, $600,000 piece of land. Bought a really nice condo, and he nets out today $2,200 every single month that he didn't have when he had the land. Net, positive $2,200 a month. So that totally made him very, very happy because he could spend that money. He went to Vegas every quarter, and enough money to go to Vegas every quarter. Whatever you want to do. So know that like kindness means a lot of different things. Now, this timeline is, I know it looks a little confusing, but let me explain. So you have two processes going down simultaneously. You have the selling process, the relinquished property is what we call it, and then the buying process, which is your replacement property. Okay, so there's two different timelines that have to go together. Now, when you're selling, you're going to aggressively market it and sell it, the investment property. When you do that, you get an acceptance date of the relinquished property. Now, typically, that process to close is about 45 days. From when it closes, you have 45 days to assign a replacement property. So when people say, well, Dan, 45 days is not enough time for me to find a replacement property, I don't think I'm comfortable doing this, I would say to them, I wouldn't feel comfortable either. I totally agree. And the reason why our mindset is different and our systems are different and our success is different is because we're not looking at this as a 45-day window. We're looking at this as more than a 90-day window. And the reason for that is we're not going to start shopping here after you close. We're going to start shopping even before you go into escrow. We want to start shopping for a replacement property as you're marketing the one you're selling. And here's why. The minute that you get yours into escrow, we want to start writing offers for your replacement property. So we're not going to wait till down here. Can you see my cursor?
No, we
Hello?
cannot.
No, it's lagging.
Oh,
So Dan,
oh,
you need to tell me when
sorry.
to change the screen because I'm controlling the screen now.
No, you're at the right screen, but you can't see can you see the cursor now?
No.
No.
Oh, okay. Okay. Sorry about that. So that's why we haven't failed. So if you think about it, our clients get greater than 90 days, typically of over 100 days of shopping time to find their replacement property versus just 45 days. Okay? Now, simultaneously, from the date of closing of the relinquished property, not only do you have 45 days to find a replacement property, simultaneously, you have to close within 180 days, 6 months. That's rarely an issue. The only time that could be a consideration would be if you're replacing it with a brand new construction home and you don't know when it's going to be completed. Right? So just know that these two dates will follow simultaneously. All right. I don't have my chat box here, so I can't see it. Let's see.
And you can
Okay.
also identify up to 3 properties, correct? 3
Yeah.
properties
Yeah.
during the identification period, but you will have to close on one of them within that 180-day period.
Yeah.
But again, like Dan was saying, that's why you start looking early on, even before you get into escrow on the relinquished property. So you have enough time to find those 3 options, those 3 properties that you really like, have good cap rates, good good potential, and then you close on the one of them.
Yep. Very good. Can you see my screen now, or is it on the same slide?
Still on the same slide.
Okay. So next, Julie. So
Okay, there we go.
So the question is it a good time to do a 1031 exchange? I'd say if you don't have any equity, no, don't do it. If you have equity, then yes. If you have significant equity, absolutely, right? If you want to increase or upgrade your portfolio, if you want to, what a lot of our clients are doing now is they're selling a lot of condos and they're buying houses because the condos maintenance fees are rising. So they're upgrading. They're selling a condo, they're getting a mortgage for the difference because the rates are so good though that they're leveraging their money. They're taking an asset that's not performing well, putting that as a down payment, and then they're leveraging the low cost of the mortgage, and they're making money on it that way. Right? If they want to relocate the asset, some folks are selling it to bring that asset from the mainland back to Hawaii, and some are from Hawaii, they're selling it and moving their assets to somewhere on the mainland where their kids are or where they were going to move to. And if you want to take advantage of the historically low interest rates, lock in now for 30 years, right? And if you want to help out family with real estate or create a legacy, we'll talk about that shortly. Next, Julie.
So quickly, Dan, tell us a little bit about the Delaware Statutory Trust.
Okay, so most people don't know what a DST is, so I don't blame you if you don't. It's not something that's publicly marketed. You have to be a certified investor, and I think it's over $1 million or $2 million of assets. I can't recall, and it has to be certified through a certified financial planner. So we don't do this at all. We do know that it's a tool, right? It is approved by the IRS for a 1031 exchange, and there's no property management issues or fees. You get a yielding a net return of 5%, net of all fees, at a minimum. There are some that are higher than that. So can I realistically promise you that you can get 5% in Hawaii? I can't. Can these guys? They have been. Yeah. So we see some of our clients moving into the DST model because there's no hassle, there's no upfront cost, and there's no loan required. What that means is if you're selling a $600,000 condo, but you have a $200,000 mortgage, see, if you sold your $600,000 place and bought another piece of real estate, you still have to get a mortgage of $200,000. If you do a DST, though, you'll do a 1031 exchange of selling a $600,000. They'll equate it to a $600,000 replacement, but your net return will only be based on the $400,000 that you put into it. and you do not have to get the mortgage on the $200,000. Right? So there's a lot of benefits with it. The biggest benefit, guys, on a DST is it's a safety net. And the reason why it's a safety net is so somebody comes to us and says they want to do a 1031 exchange, we always want to suggest this as a safety net. The reason for that is in the event something goes bad and the property that you wanted to buy as a replacement property doesn't work out well, and you're at the end of your deadline, you can execute on a DST and you don't have to worry about capital gains, right? So that's the real benefit of it. No upfront costs, no management fees, net 5% return, though you do have to be certified to be part of that program. So if anybody has any questions about that, let me know and I can introduce you to some people that have the ability to help you with the DSTs. But it's a great safety net if you're certified. We talked about this, right? We talked about the 3 properties, Khalil. There's also another rule called the 200% rule.
Yeah.
And the reason for the 200% rule is, let's say you sell $1 million asset here. Well, and you want to buy in Texas, where they're $125,000. Well, you can't just designate 3. Okay? What they say is you can designate up to 200% of the value, as many as you want, up to the value 200% of the relinquished property. So I could essentially sell my $1 million asset here and assign as a replacement property, designate up to $2 million of as many properties as I want. Okay, that's a 200% rule. Rarely does that come into consideration, in particular in Hawaii it doesn't. But if you're transferring it from a large asset area to a small asset area, you're probably going to have the 200% rule. Right? And again, you have to close in 180 days. So we talked about that. You know what, we're running out of time here. So what we're going to do is, this is a whole nother class. Actually, aren't we teaching this class on Saturday? We are, right?
Yes, it's a class on Saturday.
Okay, so this is the class on Saturday. So if you're thinking about buying or selling, just know that there are 7 ways a buyer can cancel on the seller. And this is really where the rubber meets the pavement in real estate, because this is stuff that you want to know if you're buying or selling, because you got to know your rights. Well, we're not going to cover it today. We ran out of time. We're going to talk about this on Saturday. So tune back in on Saturday. We've got a lot of people who want to know what their rights are. We're going to cover all these things. So let's wrap up with the last few minutes about transferring wealth and creating a legacy. First question for you, and put it in the chat box for me. Raise your hand if you've ever heard of a family that after mom and dad died, the family fought over real estate. Just put in there, yes or no. Have you heard of that? Yes. If you've never heard of that, say no. Have you heard of a family who fought over real estate after mom and dad died? Anybody? Yeah? Yeah. Well, said yeah. Martin said yeah. Yeah. You kind of, why is that? Why, you know, we're told from our family and friends and attorneys that you put your property in a trust that keeps you safe. And, you know, that's 100% true. It keeps you safe from probate. What it doesn't do is keep you safe from your family, unfortunately, most times. There are some cases where it actually works out really well. Depends on how the trust is written. Now, I'm not a trust attorney. We work with a lot of them. And so if you need help, we can guide you to somebody who is a trust attorney. But we're not that. But we've seen so many of them, and we've gone through so many experiences that we've figured out a solution for some folks who choose to do so. So this example, let's just say mom and dad had two assets, or one, doesn't matter. They had an investment property they did not live in, okay? And it's generating income, and the family's fine, they're happy, right? George, Lucy, Grant, Ann, they get together every once in a while on holidays and birthdays, and everything's great. They're close. They have their own, you know, lives now. They've got their own interests and desires, needs, but right now they're a loving family, right? Dad passes away, and mom says, you know what? I heard there's a way that we can prevent family disputes. I heard there's a way that maybe I can create a legacy with what dad and I built over the years, right? So what does that look like? So what mom says is, you know what, I'm going to do a 1031 exchange, and I'm going to sell my asset, and you 4 kids, I'm going to let you predetermine your inheritance. And the way you're going to be able to do that is I'm going to take my asset, let's just say round numbers, the asset was $1 million for round numbers' sake, because I'm a simple guy, right? And let's just say each one of these is $250,000. So mom says is I'm going to sell this asset, and these people are going to help us shepherd this process because it's a very complicated process, and failure is painful, and we're not going to fail. So we're going to use these folks to help shepherd the process. They're going to sell this asset, and George, Lucy, Grant, and Ann, I'm going to let you predetermine your inheritance, which means that you're going to have the ability to be part of the selection process of $250,000 real estate asset. Now, you can buy more than that, but you really can't buy less than that. Right? You can buy more than that. So George says, yeah, I needed an office space that I kind of wanted to rent anyways, that near my office, that I'll buy a space that I can maybe rent it. Lucy says, you know what? Yeah, I think I want to get something for my daughter who's going to UAH. Grant says, yeah, you know, my kids are, they're getting older now. They're going to have grandkids. They want to take care of them. And she's in Mililani. Why does this work so well? This works so well because families are not in the same community any longer. George, Lucy, Grant, and live in different communities. They don't have a desire to have the apartment building in Mo'iliili. They really want what that can provide for them, for their families, for their legacy. So mom does this. She sells 1, she buys 4, right? She keeps it in her name. Some of the kids put more money into it. Some of the kids actually take a loan out, right? And they co-own the property. If they co-own it, then they can live there. Mom can't live in there because it's an investment property on mom's share of the property. So let's just say Ann says, you know what, there was this house I've been eyeing out. I've never owned a home. I could never afford it. It's $500,000. I can afford a $250,000 mortgage. I just don't have $250,000 down payment, right? So mom says, why don't we do this together? I'll sell my place. I'll use that as a down payment. Mom will own 50% of it, and will own the other 50% of it, and we'll get the mortgage and be responsible for the note for the $250,000 in mortgage. But she gets the house that she could never have before. And now grandma has created an opportunity for one of her daughters to have a house for their kids that they could never ever have before. And that's why this is working so well for many, many families, because this next generation, while they might have good credit, they might have good jobs, they just don't have a down payment. And where mom doesn't really need the money anymore, she's got her retirement, she's got, long-term care, she's got some insurance, she's got other properties, doesn't really need the money, but the kids could appreciate that and use it, right? And so when mom passes away, each of these assets it's held in mom's trust and then floats directly down to each of these kids at a stepped up cost basis, which means she's not only deferred her capital gains tax, she's eliminated her capital gains tax. And you might wonder, how do you do that? There's only 2 ways to eliminate capital gains tax. 1, avoid it and go to jail. You don't want to do that. Or 2, pass away. And eventually, we're all going to leave this planet at some point. So, why don't we plan for the inevitable, right? And help our families out, right? And help create generational wealth and creating a legacy with by doing a process like this, we're educating the next generation how to build wealth, how to minimize. So you build wealth by a number of ways, right? You build it by minimizing capital gains taxes. That's one way. You build it by appreciation. You build it by leveraging assets with the low interest rates. What families are doing today, they're now not only helping their families create a legacy, but they're educating the next generation of how to build wealth and take care of their family as they move on.
So I just want to reiterate that one more time. You're doing a couple different things, right? you are creating a legacy by designating their properties beforehand. So what you're doing is you're keeping your kids from fighting. And the other thing is you're passing it down without the capital gains and at a stepped up basis. So
Yes,
that's the main point. It's huge. It's huge.
magic. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, we actually have 3 clients today, sort of clients, not really because we can't help them, that all want to sell their properties, that the siblings are fighting over the property of mom and dad's property. One of them actually, one family, there's 6 kids. They're in their 60s and 70s. When they came to my office a number of years ago, there were only 5 showed up, and I asked if the other ones are going to show up, and they say, no, he's not going to come today. I said, do you mind my asking why is he not showing up? And he said, well, we have a restraining order on you. He's no longer allowed within 50 feet of our presence. It got violent. The family disputes can get really ugly. The other 2 families that we have, I told you there's 3. The other 2 are now talking to their siblings through attorneys because they no longer can talk to each other. It got bad and they just stopped talking. So now they're taking mom and dad's inheritance money, all of the hard work mom and dad did for the kids who are 60s and 70s now, the kids are taking that money and paying attorneys because of this problem. Here's the worst part of it all. In 2 of those cases, mom's not dead yet. Mom's in a care home and she has dementia. And she has no idea what's going on. The worst part of it is one of them is a daughter and a son. One of them, the daughter is a successor trustee responsible to fulfill the wishes of the trust. And mom's going to run out of money. So she needs to sell it to take care of mom's care. The brother says to the sister, if you sell the property to take care of mom, I'm going to sue you. That's messed up. That's really messed up. So your family's not like that. I know it is. So I'm not here to scare you. But I've seen so many situations, and that's why sitting down and creating a strategy, every single one of these are customized, because when we sit down, we talk about strategy, we talk about families, we talk about goals, we talk about what you want to see after you're gone. Really, that's what a legacy is, right? So at the end of the day, when you're gone, what do you want your assets to do? Who do you want it to go to? How do you want to spend? Right? Who do you want to bless? Things like that. We talk a lot about that. Well, we ran out of time, Khalil. We actually went overboard, so let me pound through this real quick. We have some upcoming seminars.
Yep.
We've got a lot of them. Actually, this is all June. This is my new work schedule. So we did 8 seminars in May. This is the 7th one. On Saturday will be the last in May. And then in June, we're doing 6.
Actually, there's 8
6.
seminars also. We don't have the last 2 on here, but there are actually 8 seminars.
Okay. Yeah, some of these we've done last month. Some were new. But our goal is to bring value. So in the chat box, we really appreciate if we can understand what you think about the seminar and how we can better improve it. Next, Julie. Oh yeah, and register through Eventbrite if you can, or call. In closing up, this is a little information about our organizations. We started in real estate 15 years ago. I did, and Julie started a year after. We have a large team now. I've helped over, I think we sold over 1,100 transactions in our 15 years. We built this thing called the Complete Solution, and we trademarked it for the United States because we found a model that serves a need, and the needs are like this. 10 years ago, we found that there was a need for older adults because they wanted to sell their home and move somewhere, but number one, they didn't know where to go, so we became a placement company. We know where people can go. We help them there, get there. We know the cost, we know what life looks like, we know what their food is like. So we're sort of like a placement company, unofficial. And then once we place them there, then we help them get there, which means downsizing and decluttering all their stuff, right? Because the biggest challenge for most folks is their stuff. Well, not only seniors, but even tenants sometimes leave stuff, right? So we're doing a lot of work with investors that sometimes by the time they get the key, it's still got stuff there. So we go and help provide that solution. Also, our investors need property management. So we started High Property Management. Little background on that firm. We started investing around the country, in particular in Texas, about 5 years ago. Bought a couple properties there. But before we bought there, we wanted to investigate the best property managers because we knew we were not going to see the property. So we found a team that did a really good job there, so good that we brought that model to Hawaii. And now we use that system. It's a high-level service system for tenants, but also mainly for our owners. Then we built Stage Hawaii, which is a staging company, because staging is important in today's world in particular, that we have to make sure that property looks as good as possible because people are shopping on their cell phone, right? And then Silver Spoons, which is a nonprofit, designed to take care of older adults who cannot take care of themselves. That all of these for-profit companies serve and feed to help our seniors, our kupuna, in need. Okay, Julie? And yeah, so it's a 501c3 organization. It's our very first nonprofit we ever built because we know that there's so many people in need, and there's over 16,000 older adults living in state housing today that we get calls from the Adult and Protective Services helping because they call and say they're going to kick somebody out of their state housing, subsidized housing, if they don't get it cleaned up or it becomes not a health hazard any longer. So that's the service we provide. And really just to touch their life and let them know that Jesus loves them. And wrapping up, we kind of run everything off of a similar model, which is really to honor God by serving others with the highest level of competency, care, and compassion with uncompromising integrity. Right. Oh, wait.
It looks like we have a couple questions.
Okay,
just
cool.
came in. One from Gary Okimoto. Is there a depreciation recapture in a 1031 exchange if a new purchase property costs as much or more than property sold?
I don't believe they call it a recapture, Gary. I don't think you can what do they call, after the 27.5 years are gone, I believe you cannot reset it. But check with your CPA. That's more of a accounting question. Actually, if you can check with your CPA, I'll check with mine also. And we'll come to an answer. We'll get back to you on that. That I honestly don't know for certain. But we'll find out.
Okay, one more question. If we do a 1031 exchange now, then sometime down the line, say 3 or 5 years from now, I decide I wanted to move into the property, can I? This one's from Doreen.
Yeah, Doreen, that's what a lot of folks are doing now. See, the IRS law says that the 1031 exchanges, they're going to let you defer your capital gains taxes, and the reason why they're doing that is their goal is to stimulate the economy, meaning you're not going to sell an investment property and take all the gain out. You're going to keep the economy moving. You're going to stimulate the economy by adding another asset, right, that you rent, right? So you don't want to move into it for the first 2 years at least. Well, they say a year and a day, but I'd say 2 years or more. But after that, after you prove to the IRS that you did rent it out, that your intention was to have an investment property, but your intentions changed over time, I've told that that's okay. Again, you want to double check with your CPA, and we have a number of CPAs and attorneys that work with the IRS regarding this, and they've confirmed that information. So yeah, we have a lot of clients doing that. We had a client that sold a Mililani house, and they always wanted to move into, One Kalakaua, where it's a deeded equity property. That's a senior community. And they knew that at some point they're going to need help, but they're able-bodied, they're healthy, so they're planning ahead. So they sold their Mililani house that they're renting. They bought a one Kalakaua that they're renting, and in a couple of years they probably will move in. 2 or 3, 5 years from now, they're going to move in. So, yeah, good questions. All right. So if any of you are curious and want to figure out, like, yeah, that sounds interesting, what would it look like for me? Just go into the chat box and just put free chat strategy session, and that's what we would do. We would help you create a clarity on maybe what the opportunities are, and make sure you see what the challenges are as well, right, through that process. And then if you could help us with some feedback, we'd really appreciate that. Oh, look at the Carrie. You already put that in there. Is that the Google's? Yeah, that's the survey it's doing. If you can click on that chat form box there, that'll take you to a feedback form. We would really, really appreciate understanding what you felt about the class and how we can better improve on it. And then our upcoming ones, you can go to our eharteamhawaii.kw.com webinars, and then our virtual walkthroughs are also there. Next one, Julie. Oh, we're done. Very cool. Any questions? 1031 exchange questions. I know we covered a lot of information here. I know we went over time. My apologies. Just a lot to go over. But yeah, if you have an investment property and let's say you have an investment property, but you're just curious, we can sit down and have a strategy session. You know, the first thing we do is do an asset performance test to see how it's performing. Because if your asset is actually performing well, your strategy might be to keep it and not do anything, right? Because, and that's probably nice to know and have a confidence on also. But we're going to show you the numbers on the math that you have for your investment property, and then compare it to something else. Because here's a question for you. If you had an investment property, and if you sold it and bought something else, and you didn't pay any more money, and you had no out-of-pocket expenses, yet you could improve your return on your money, would you want to do it? Most people say yes, right? So let us know if you are interested, and if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer any questions you have. If you need referrals to any resources, CPAs, attorneys, let us know. All right. Thanks, Martin. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, Saturday's one, out of all the classes that we've done, out of the 7 that we've done so far, next one is really where my passion is advocacy on if you're thinking of buying a property, how to look at it, and then the due diligence, how to protect yourself. But also knowing that when you're selling, it's really important to know that, because you got to learn how to protect yourself and get in front of it, right? So really excited about that. Hopefully you will see you on Saturday. Anything else? Sorry guys, we're way overdue.
I just wanted to say, yeah, no, we appreciate you guys coming along for the Journey on the May webinar series. Lots of information. We'll make sure that feedback sheet goes out, because on that feedback sheet we can always improve what didn't we talk about that you'd like to see. And then also there'll be little spaces to book times with Dan to schedule a strategy session. Just a couple of notes going into June. We're not necessarily doing a series, though we're keeping the momentum going. If you have a selling related question or thought process, those will be our lunch and learns on Thursday, right? Thursday is at noon, pretty steady. If you're thinking about buying or issues in regards to buying real estate, those will be our Saturday morning coffee times at 10:30 a.m. So just kind of following a little momentum that you guys know where to follow and where to stay connected with us throughout this time.
Cool, very cool. All right, and I think I'm kind of done here.
So we also, we're mixing it up a little bit. We also are adding in for the month of June, we're adding a senior living option seminar in June. which we have been in pretty regularly for many years, but we haven't done one recently online. And we're also bringing a new one out in June, a military and VA buyer, the mistakes to avoid in those types of transactions. And I know there's one more. There's another new buyer seminar. I don't remember the name. It's at the end of June.
I think Cleo's got a surfing class on Sunday.
Yeah, of course. Surfing
think
class
that
starts Sunday. Meet me at Rock Piles.
Yeah, Dan and Cleo have that surfing class.
It's free for clients. All righty,
Yep.
guys.
Mhm.
Thanks so much. I appreciate you. Thanks, Doreen. You guys have a great day now. God bless you. Take care. Be safe.
Thank you.
See you Saturday. Aloha.